okay, let's look at watches. There's no real improvement in performance, right? I mean, they're beautiful, but I mean, the performance difference between now and 10 years ago is not clear. The whole thing is fucking insane. It's insane. Like, I brought my watch. I have a Rolex. This thing's always fast. I said, it's always like, after a couple months, it's like 5 minutes fast. And they go, yep. They go, yeah.
Really?
It's just what it does.
Okay.
I go, hold on. I go, so you're telling me that it just is always going to be fast? It's the whole thing is nuts.
You paid $10,000 for a Rolex. You didn't just buy a watch. You bought the story. Swiss perfection, timeless elegance, a piece of precision forged in the icy silence of the Alps by artisans in white lab coats. But what if that was all a lie? What if your so-called Swiss masterpiece was actually made in a crowded Chinese factory, mass-produced, mislabeled, and sold to you with a markup so outrageous it should be criminal? Joe Rogan just cracked the illusion wide open on the world's biggest podcast, and now the internet is in full-blown meltdown. Leaked emails, secret invoices, factory whistleblowers, celebrities scrambling, and the crown jewel of the luxury world, Rolex, is under fire like never before. This isn't just a scandal. It's a takedown of a billion-dollar fantasy. And it all started with a simple question. Why is my luxury watch always 5 minutes fast? You bought a lie. Not just a fake bag, not just a knockoff, a lie. A lie dressed in calfskin and stamped in gold. A lie that whispered heritage, exclusivity, status, and you believed it. Because why wouldn't you? Every ad, every A-list celebrity, every glass of champagne handed to you in that boutique was part of the performance. You weren't just buying a product. You were buying into a dream. A dream sold by Hermes, Louis Vuitton, Rolex. A dream upheld by magazine covers, private unboxings, and even influencers on Joe Rogan's podcast swearing by the craftsmanship. But what if Joe Rogan, someone millions trust to cut through the noise, was lied to too? What if those $1,000 bags weren't made in Paris ateliers by wrinkled artisans with decades of experience, but in anonymous Chinese factories churning them out for pennies on the dollar? This isn't about fashion anymore. This is about fraud on a global scale. It's about brands selling you a fantasy while outsourcing the reality to the cheapest bidder, then marking it up 10,000%. You thought you were buying prestige. You were funding a deception. And the receipts? They're coming from whistleblowers, leaked invoices, and even inside the factories themselves. You didn't just get scammed. You got played. And the luxury industry is praying you never find out. But today, we're going to drag it into the light. Rolex isn't just a watch. It's a ritual, a signal, a silent handshake in boardrooms, a passport to elite spaces. It's the glint on a wrist that says, I've arrived. For over a century, Rolex has sold more than time. It's sold identity. Swiss precision, hand-assembled mastery, generational legacy. They've convinced the world their watches are forged by monks in mountaintop temples, each gear kissed by alpine air and engraved by artisans sworn to secrecy. We don't wear Rolex to tell time. We wear to tell the world who we are. Swiss-made, 2 tiny words with a price tag higher than some cars. But what if I told you that belief, that myth, is the biggest bait-and-switch in luxury history? Because behind that sapphire crystal face is something Rolex never wanted you to see. Automated assembly lines, outsourced parts, and shipping containers stamped made in China. The lie isn't in the movement. It's in the marketing. And what happens when one of Rolex's most visible believers, someone with millions of listeners, starts to question it all? Enter Joe Rogan, UFC commentator, media titan, and longtime Rolex loyalist. He's worn them on his wrist during fight nights, talked about them on air, even gifted them to guests. To Rogan, Rolex wasn't just a watch. It was the reward for making it, a symbol of freedom and success. But on episode number 2194, something shifts. Midway through a conversation about luxury branding, Rogan pauses, leans back, and says, "Man, I've been hearing stuff about Rolex that's starting to mess with me." The room goes quiet. He talks about an anonymous source who emailed his team, sent files, documents, photos, all pointing to one thing: Rolex parts being mass-produced in Shenzhen, China, then quietly shipped to Switzerland for final assembly. A whistleblower claiming to have worked in the factory. Rogan doesn't make wild accusations. He asks questions, the kind that make luxury executives squirm. Are we just paying for a story? He wonders. Is the whole Swiss-made thing just branding BS? The comments explode. TikToks dissect every second. Reddit threads spiral. And for the first time, mainstream attention pierces the hermetically sealed world of luxury watchmaking. And just when you think it's hype or hearsay, the real proof hits. Let's talk facts. Invoices leak from a parts supplier in Guangzhou, listing bulk shipments of watch dials, bezels, clasps, and crown logos. Not knockoffs, not fakes. These were legit parts, destined for client R. Photos surface next. Trays of precision gear components, stamped with prototype markings, identical to those found inside high-end Rolex models. Then come the internal shipping logs. Dozens of containers routed from China to Switzerland's Freeport zones. Tax-free holding areas where items can be modified, rebranded, and reclassified before they legally enter Switzerland. This is how the trick works. A watch made 90% in China gets its final case seal, a few screws tightened, and the rotor engraved in a Swiss facility. That's all it takes to earn the Swiss-made label under the current loopholes. It's not illegal. It's worse. It's perfectly legal deception. Meanwhile, buyers drop $15,000 thinking they're getting something sacred. But behind the curtain, it's cost-cutting and global outsourcing disguised as tradition. The Swiss stamp? It's just a costume. And the house of cards? It's starting to tremble. At first, nothing. No statements. No denials. No lawsuits. Just silence. Not from Rolex. Not from their parent company. Not from the luxury consortiums that treat PR like religion. No one said a word. But in Hollywood, silence is a response. And it didn't take long before the panic began to leak out in plain sight. Kylie Jenner? One day, she's posting a close-up of her iced-out date just on IG stories, tagging Rolex with a glitter emoji. The next? That story's gone. Wiped. The post. Archived. Like it never happened. Drake? A man whose entire aesthetic is built around wealth and legacy? Paparazzi catch him outside a Toronto club, but the signature gold day date he's known for? Gone. In its place, a discreet Patek, worn under his sleeve. And The Rock, Mr. Red Carpet, Mr. Franchise, whose Rolex collection has been the subject of entire GQ spreads. At a recent film premiere, stylists were ready to roll out a custom two-tone submariner to match his tailored suit. But at the last minute, switched. No Rolex. Not even a watch. Just a blacked-out cufflink and a long stare for the cameras. It's subtle, but it's coordinated. Then whispers started flying in talent circles. Stylists warned to hold off on Rolex pieces for now. Agents quietly telling clients to archive sponsored posts. One fashion PR insider leaked a memo. Avoid visible Rolex branding until further notice. High sensitivity, what was once the safest flex in the game, the mark of class, of timeless status, had become a risk. Not because of legal fallout. Not because anyone admitted guilt, but because the illusion cracked. And in a world where image is currency, celebrities don't wait for proof. They move with the vibe. Rumors swirled of an invisible blacklist, not from Rolex, but from the culture itself. Stylists whispering about brands they won't pull from anymore. Influencers scrubbing old TikToks where they bragged about saving up for the crown. Suddenly, that signature 5-point logo didn't feel like legacy. It felt like liability. And yet, the brand itself? Still quiet. Not a tweet. Not a press release. Not a clarification. Just that same sterile website and the same curated Instagram grid. As if the walls weren't shaking behind the scenes. Because in the luxury world, silence is strategy. But the longer they stay quiet, the louder the truth gets. It started quietly, a few TikTok videos going private. Then some Instagram reels getting quietly archived. But by the end of the week, you could see it everywhere. Influencers, not the mega celebs, but the mid-tier creators, the micro-luxury experts, the aspirational voices, were scrambling to disassociate from Rolex. One lifestyle vlogger with over 300K followers took down her first Rolex unboxing video that had been up for a year. No announcement, No explanation. Just gone. Then came the apology videos. I'm not gonna lie. One creator begins, staring straight into her phone camera, visibly shaken. I bought into the dream. I wanted to believe in it. Swiss-made, handcrafted, generational quality. I even saved for 2 years to get my first date just. But now, after everything that's come out, I feel dumb. I feel used. Another TikToker, known for reviewing luxury watches, issued a public apology to his followers. Look, I promoted Rolex on this channel. I've praised their craftsmanship, their resale value, their purity. But if what Joe Rogan said is true, and those documents, those photos, I can't stand by it. I'm rethinking everything I've said about them. This wasn't just about status anymore. This was about trust, about people, real people, who had spent years saving, grinding, building toward what they thought was a symbol of having made it. A woman in her 20s stitched a viral clip of the Rogan podcast and added, teary-eyed, I bought my Rolex after I graduated law school. It was my I did it gift. And now I find out it might have been stamped in Switzerland after being built in a Chinese warehouse. That's not luxury. That's deception. The anger wasn't coming from envy. It was coming from betrayal. This wasn't just a watch. It was supposed to be proof that all the hard work, the hustle, the sacrifice had paid off. Influencers who built entire brands on luxury reviews are now backpedaling, some deleting years of content. Others have started calling for accountability, tagging Rolex directly in videos with captions like, "We deserve the truth." One creator summed it up best in a video that's now pushing 500,000 views. We trusted the myth. We gave Rolex our time, our money, our faith. And what did we get in return? Silence. The fallout is no longer limited to luxury circles. Now it's personal, because when the myth breaks, so does the meaning behind it. You won't find a press release. You won't see a headline. But if you look closely, you'll see it. The quiet retreat. The sudden edits. The cold, surgical distancing. Hollywood is pulling away from Rolex. First, it was Netflix. Nothing official, nothing public. But sharp-eyed fans started noticing something odd. In one popular series, a Rolex close-up shot that aired in early trailers was gone by the time the show dropped, replaced with a wide shot. No watch in sight. And in another Netflix original, a music biopic, fans swore they saw a shot of the protagonist gifting a gold Rolex during an awards scene in the teaser. By Final Cut, scene shortened, dialogue tweaked. The brand never mentioned. Then came the leaks from inside the industry. A digital editor who worked post-production on a prestige film says their team was specifically instructed to minimize identifiable branding on a character's wrist. And according to a mid-level Netflix production assistant on Reddit, Rolex was on a quiet do not show list for anything upcoming this quarter. Hollywood's not canceling Rolex, at least not yet. But it's unmistakable. The brand is becoming toxic quietly. Sources in major talent agencies are whispering that some A-list clients have been advised not to wear Rolex to upcoming premieres. Not because of lawsuits or scandal, but because of optics. Image consultants are reportedly telling stylists, avoid Rolex for red carpets until this blows over. And some stylists are listening. One insider at a major fashion house says 2 major recording artists were styled in Cartier and Audemars Piguet this award season, even though both own multiple Rolex pieces. Why? Quote, the vibe's off. No one wants to be the face of cover-up. And it's not just fashion. One label executive confirmed that an album rollout originally planned to include a luxury-themed photo shoot, complete with champagne, private jets, and, yes, Rolexes, has now been rebranded to lean more indie, more authentic. The Rolex imagery? Scrapped. What's happening is calculated, controlled, deliberate. Hollywood isn't making noise. Hollywood is pulling the plug quietly. Because behind closed doors, it's clear no one wants to be caught defending a brand that might have built its legacy on lies. And in an industry that thrives on illusion, even they know when a myth has gone too far. This isn't your typical boycott. This is Gen Z, and they don't just cancel, they investigate. Once the whispers started, once Joe Rogan's podcast went viral and those factory images hit the timeline, Gen Z did what they do best. They pulled receipts. Fast. On TikTok, creators with usernames like @LuxTruths, @WatchDoggins, and @TimepieceWhistle started uploading side-by-side breakdowns. One video compared a $40,000 Rolex Daytona to what appears to be the exact same bezel listed on a Chinese supplier's site for under $30. Another viral post featured a girl unboxing her boyfriend's Rolex gift, only to pause, zoom in on the crown etching under the glass, and whisper, "This ain't Swiss. This is SUS." Within hours, the hashtag Swiss or Sus was trending. Videos weren't just mocking Rolex, they were decoding it. Young sleuths examined lug widths, engraving inconsistencies, and date wheel fonts. Things you'd expect from a seasoned horologist, not a 21-year-old with a ring light and a Reddit tab open. And speaking of Reddit, the watch communities exploded. Subreddits like r/reptime and r/watchexposed lit up with charts, leaked production estimates, and high-res comparisons between authentic Rolex models and alleged OEM parts sourced from Shenzhen factories. One user posted a breakdown titled, "Your $15,000 Submariner is 40% AliExpress," and backed it up with supplier invoices that matched the very materials Rolex claims are exclusive to Switzerland. They even dug into trademark records and customs filings. Someone found a shipping manifest from 2023 that allegedly showed bulk shipments of ceramic bezels and sapphire crystals routed from Guangzhou to Geneva via a logistics intermediary, all time just before Rolex's flagship model saw restocks. But this wasn't just about parts. It was about pride, identity. Rolex has long stood as the symbol of "I've made it." Gen Z grew up watching celebs flash Daytonas and GMT Masters like badges of success. And now, they feel duped, betrayed. TikTokers are openly mocking luxury flexes, stitching old influencer videos with captions like, "This aged like milk." Others are creating skits where someone unwraps a Rolex box, only to reveal, "Made in China," stamped beneath the velvet lining. And they're not just dragging Rolex. They're dragging anyone defending them. If you're a creator still posting Rolex content without disclaimers, you're part of the problem. If you're flaunting Swiss heritage while sidestepping the scandal, you're getting stitched and ratioed into oblivion. This isn't a luxury scandal. It's a digital autopsy. Because Gen Z didn't just ask, "Is Rolex fake?" They asked, "Who helped cover it up?" And now the myth is unraveling, one TikTok at a time. So now the question isn't if Rolex has been exposed, it's what happens next. The crown, that iconic five-pronged symbol of success, craftsmanship, and status, is now wobbling on its throne. Because this isn't just a PR nightmare. It's a crisis of belief. For decades, Rolex wasn't just a watch. It was a statement, a birthright of the elite, a finishing line for the ambitious, a quiet flex that spoke louder than any designer logo. But now, that gold-plated narrative is cracking. And behind it, we're seeing what may be the truth. Mass production, global outsourcing, and a marketing machine more polished than the timepieces themselves. And the consequences? They're just beginning. Insiders are already whispering about lawsuits. Consumers who paid tens of thousands for watches advertised as 100% Swiss-made are now consulting attorneys about false advertising and deceptive trade practices. Class actions are rumored to be forming, especially in the US, where Swiss-made isn't just a label, it's a legally binding claim. Then there's the regulatory side. EU trade officials have allegedly begun quietly revisiting the 60% rule, the loophole that lets brands call something Swiss-made if just over half the value is added in Switzerland, even if most components are manufactured elsewhere. In a post-Rolex reveal world, that rule might not hold. Pressure is mounting for reform, transparency, and stricter country of origin standards across luxury categories. And culturally, this could be a fracture point. Because if Rolex, the brand that defines luxury watches, is playing a shell game with heritage, what does that say about the rest of the industry? Omega, Patek, Audemars Piguet, even the so-called independent micro brands. If the crown can be corrupted, who's really clean? Luxury has always relied on mystery, on the illusion of rarity, on the belief that what you're buying is not just expensive, but authentic. Once that illusion shatters, it doesn't just dent sales, it rewrites the social contract. Stylists are reportedly pulling Rolex from client wardrobes. Auction houses are seeing sudden cancellations. One high-profile investor who once held millions in Rolex inventory just liquidated everything and posted, "I don't hold lies." And behind closed doors, it's panic. Brand executives in Geneva are allegedly scrambling to draft statements. Not because they want to come clean, but because they know silence is no longer an option. The pressure from influencers, customers, even celebrities demanding answers is boiling over. And it doesn't end with Rolex. TikTok sleuths are already turning their attention to other high-end brands. Where do Louis Vuitton's bags really come from? Are your made in France perfumes bottled in factories outside Jakarta? Is the Italian leather in your $3,000 boots actually sourced from a tannery in Bangladesh? In exposing Rolex, Gen Z may have cracked open the entire luxury illusion. This isn't just a scandal, it's a reckoning. So the question lingers, can the crown survive? Can Rolex, a company built on prestige, secrecy, and the promise of purity, recover from the revelation that its iconic timepieces may be stitched together with half-truths? Or will this be the moment we all look down at our wrists and finally realize we didn't just buy a watch, we bought a lie, and the whole world is now watching time run out?